It's Wednesday, June 17, 2020, Digital Trends Live. According to a recent update, we'll let you know the details about that and a voter registration push. We've also got some Line University. And the annual Worldwide Developers Conference from Apple starts next week with a new format of being all online. And Luke Larson will talk about what he expects to be unveiled. And the way we gather our news is constantly changing. And we'll be joined by the host of Sri's Daily Global COVID-19 show, Sri Srinivasan, to talk about his program and how the media landscape is changing. All that and more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. Hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and yes, we are live. I just proved it. Thanks for joining us today, wherever you're watching. We do appreciate it. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. While broadcasting live across a number of different platforms, so we encourage you to join the conversations that we get to have, share the show, let other people know about it. But let's start off with some news, and here are your headlines of what is trending right now. Let's go to Facebook, social media, and Facebook announcing some changes they're going to have that will affect you when it comes to political ads. Now, Facebook's made some kind of controversial statements as far as what people think about how Facebook is handling the political side of things, but this is something that they are saying now. When it comes to political ads, you will be able to turn them off via an option. And this will show up on the ads themselves. It'll also show up in your settings to where any ads from that will disable all social issues, electoral or political ads from candidates, super PACs, or other organizations that have the paid for by political disclaimer. So when that pops up, you'll be able to turn those off and remove them from your feed permanently. So that's something that they're going to be adding on there. They also announced that they're going to be having a voter initiative to bring more people, to register more people to vote. And they said that they want to double the estimated 2 million people it claims it guided in 2016 and 2018 to 4 million people. They want to register to help register via the platforms. You're going to start seeing this pop up on the top of your feed like we've been seeing the COVID-19 Information Center that shows up at the top there. You're now going to be seeing the Voting Information Center. So that's also going to be up there, and it will lead to recommendations and guides on voting and information on that. They said they're going to work with local and state officials to help bring more information to that. But that's something you're going to be seeing on your Facebook feed coming up. Continuing on here with our trending news, speaking of social media, there are a couple of initiatives that are being launched governmentally right now to roll back Section 230 protections for social media. Just a quick disclaimer on that. What that is essentially this is the guidance for social media, which keeps them from being sued for what people post on their pages. That's one part of it. It also gives them kind of autonomy on regulating their own platforms. Well, there's some people who aren't happy with that. So the Justice Department is set to propose a rollback of legal protections that they have. So they're going to be rolling this out. The protections would, this rollout would essentially, roll back a lot, regulated to where the social media sites would be more, would be able to content moderate but do it under the regulations that they're presenting to them. So this is Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act that they're going to roll back. The other one is this. This is coming from Senate Republicans, and they are calling this the Limiting Section 230 Immunity to Good Samaritans Act. It's a lot of words that are going on here, but really what it comes down to is this. They want to roll back protections from social media to get sued. So it would be able to bring more people the ability to sue these various social media platforms. So that is what's happening with that. That is where we're at with that news. So a lot of details on that. It really goes in detail at digitaltrends.com. You can find out more information there. Let's continue on, shall we? Let's talk about something else. Here is Amazon in the news right now, and this has to do with social distancing at work, something they're implementing in a number of their different locations, and it is called the Distance Assistant. So this is designed to help maintain 6 feet of distance between employees. It's a video system to where employees would see this video show up. You see the green circle there, that means you're okay. You get the red circle if you're within 6 feet. So this would show up across their different warehouses and encourage their employees to maintain that distance. Now, they said this is going to be going out to a lot of places. Amazon had a lot of backlash over some of the ways that they've been handling this, and a number of employees don't believe that they've implemented enough safety procedures. But this is something that they're going to be doing in their different platforms, their different warehouses, so you can take a look at that at digitaltrends.com. Let's continue on with the news live here today with you. Let's talk about 5G and how it's going to be coming to more devices soon. This has to do with Qualcomm announcing a new chip that's coming out, and this chip is going to allow mid-range phones to have 5G. There's also going to be other things that will let it do 4K UHD, HDR, 120 hertz displays, something that's typically in very high-end phones, now slowly coming down to lower-cost phones. So this means the proliferation of 5G is going to be more prevalent. They said, this is coming from Qualcomm, they believe that they can make 5G accessible to more than 2 billion people around the world, and these are expected to start coming out later on this year. So that means really what it comes down to is, yeah, you're going to be able to get 5G in your phone at a much lower price. So that's as we see 5G infrastructure built out, this is something that's going to be pretty important to get that access to more people. You can read more about that at digitaltrends.com. So that is 5G coming out. A couple other trending news stories I wanted to bring up. We know about deepfakes, and this is kind of an expansion on that. Kind of. This is called a deep face drawing, and what it is it's able to render an actual human-looking portrait out of a sketch. So what you're seeing right here, this is sped up quite a bit, but on the left you've got a sketch, then the AI is taking that and turning that into a person on the right. It looks a little bit off, but it's pretty close, and this is a pretty amazing AI that they've created. So this is coming from the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing, and deep face drawing is what they're implementing here. So it uses essentially shapes and then is able to build off of a database of human faces that it has. So it'll take a look at eyes, nose, mouth, face shape, hair type, all of that considered separately and then assembled into a single image. But it's pretty fascinating how they're able to do this, and you have to think about what they're going to be able to do with this going forward. But creating sketches like that and turning that into a portrait, pretty incredible technology. So that's something, again, called deep face drawing. And that is something you can read more about at digitaltrends.com, but pretty fascinating stuff right there. And continuing on here with our trending news, let's go to SpaceX, an announcement by Elon Musk. Now, we do know that they have their initiatives to go to Mars, and now we're going to find out a little bit more about where they're going to be launching. They want to build giant launch bases at sea. So it's be a spaceport, essentially. And these would be out in the ocean because of the fact that they can be away from populated centers. They don't have to worry about people or any of the regulations that go along with that. So they could have these floating super heavy class spaceports, is what Elon Musk said. They've had some job postings in association with that. And this is something that would be partly for launching the Starship, which would go to the moon and beyond, but also utilizing that technology for Earth-to-Earth travel. They've discussed this before, to have hypersonic travel around the Earth. So you would essentially go into space, land somewhere else. You could get there very quickly, but something that they have been talking about. So that's pretty interesting and fascinating to see where they're going with this. Obviously, a lot going to be developing with that, but they think this could be happening within the next few years. So we could have these spaceports at sea. You can read more about that at digitaltrends.com.
Hey, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day.
All right, here it is. This is our product of the day. Speaking of travel, well, when that happened, how about language interpretation in your ears? I'm talking about a Babelfish, essentially. We get the WT2 language translator. So this is something that you wear in your ears, and it supports 40 40 languages and 88 accents. And the accents is really interesting there as well. So it's got two-way translation, multiple foreign languages. Like I said, there's 40 ones of that, and the accents on top of that. These earbuds go in, they're wireless, they're Bluetooth. They've got real-time translation, and it works with iOS or Android. It's got a charging case on it. It's got 15 hours of battery life. And a lot of specifications with this that are pretty interesting to see how it is. They said that's up to 95% accurate, and the translation happens within 1 to 3 seconds. So in real time, as you're sitting there, you'd be able to hear what somebody is saying and get that information back. So pretty fascinating. And again, that's the WT2 language translator. And these earbuds are available right now on sale. So the deal is this. What you want to do is there's a link that'll show up here below me or on whatever platform you're watching on, and you can click that. And the deal right now, as of this moment, normally $299, is on sale for $100 off at $199. So you can pick that up for your product of the day. And again, the WT2 buds. So there you go. All right, continuing on here with Digital Trends, we've got a lot to talk about today, and I appreciate everybody who joins us here live every single day. Up next, let's talk about education, and we've got Shai Reshef, who is the president of the University of the People, talking about free online education that is American accredited. So it's really interesting and fascinating what they've created with this. We're going to talk about education and all that's coming up next on Instagram. Back to you in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Again, thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We broadcast live here every weekday, so hit that subscribe button. And we get to have some great conversations here, and that's what we're going to talk about right now, is the changing way that education and universities are handling things that are happening right now, but also just trends that are changing in general when it comes to education. And to do that, we are joined right now by President of the University of the People, Shai Reshef, who is here to talk about their platform and their university. And Shai, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you being here on the show. And to start off, I want to give everybody just a little bit of context as far as the landscape of education in general. Can you talk to us about what the state is when it comes to higher education?
Sure, Greg. Well, higher education, the situation of the higher education is not clear, especially when we're talking about the fall. Enrollment is expected to drop 20%. In Harvard Business School and Wharton, they expect 25% of the students to take a gap year, not to come next year. In some states, they're talking about 10% dropout, in others, 20% dropout. 12% of high school expected to take a gap year. So there is a lot of students who are not planning on coming next year. And universities are in trouble because not many universities can sustain themselves or can have a 10, 20% budget cut because they don't have the revenues. So they have a problem. And this problem is even intensified because states cut budget, so they don't have enough money coming from the state. And a lot of parents, because of the recession, lose their job and they cannot send their kids to school.
I was looking at some of the stats too that you provided. Some pretty big budget shortfalls, kind of like you were mentioning there, that these universities are facing. And going from that and understanding the context of what the landscape is for that, let's talk about your people and this university and what exactly it brings to the table, and maybe why it was founded in the first place.
So, University of the People is a nonprofit, tuition-free, accredited American online university that was started to open the gates of higher education for every single student who is qualified for higher education but cannot do it. And there are a lot of students who cannot afford higher education, either because it's too expensive, either because they need to combine it with their life and they are working adults and they cannot take a stop in their life and go back to school. And for all these people, we come and say, hey, you can come to us and study tuition free and with the flexibility and the quality that we offer. Now, this is especially true for the pandemic period because a lot of people are losing their jobs. They need education, either to complete their education or to have a new career. And they cannot afford either going to college for 4 years or pay the tremendous amount of money that college costs. And here we are saying, you're welcome to come to us. We are tuition free and we are there for you. And anyone that is qualified and meet our standards is welcome to come.
Now, I got to ask, how are you able to offer this tuition free?
Well, we are able to offer it tuition free, first of all, because we don't have buildings. Second, because we lean heavily on technology. So every place that the technology we can use technology instead of human being, we do use technology. We use open educational resources, so we never send the students to buy textbooks, and we have volunteers. So the combination of all of it, and it's very important, we offer the students only the thing that they need for their education, nothing more. So we are high quality education, but we are pure education, nothing more. And saying that, we ask the students to pay $100 per each end of course exam. So you take the courses for free, you study all the material, you want to take the exam, it costs $100, and this is all they have to pay. So a full BA over 4 years is $4,000 if they have the money. If not, we're trying to give scholarship. But this amount makes us sustainable also because we lean heavily on volunteers. I'm a volunteer, so we have the presidents of NYU, former and present presidents of NYU, Columbia, Berkeley, amazing universities who are jumped on board to make this dream come true. And it is true.
I mean, that's incredible. $4,000 for essentially a degree versus, that could be a term or I mean, not even cover a term in a lot of different universities. Talking about where you're at right now, looking at enrollment, I'm seeing that it's about 30,000 students right now worldwide. Is that right?
Yeah, over 31,000 students. Tomorrow we start a new term, so it will grow tomorrow. But yeah, over 31,000 students from 200 countries. So yeah, when you study with us, one of the benefits is that you're exposed to students from literally every country on the globe.
And as we see a lot of universities going to online classes, or at least, our education system is changing, even down to elementary school. Everything's going online. You've been at the forefront of this for a while. So can you talk a little bit about the tech and how that works, what the student experience is like?
This is a good question, because a lot of universities were forced to move online, and basically they shut down the campus, told the professor, go on Zoom and teach. Teaching on Zoom is not really online learning. And we have the experience of the MOOCs, where the best professors of the world went online and taught their classes. It didn't work. We use the technology where we build a platform where the students interact with each other all week long, among themselves and with the professor. So the entire pedagogy is students teaching and learning from each other, interacting with each other, interacting with students from around the world all week long. And we have professor, the instructor, who is in the class every single day, reading what the students wrote, intervene in the discussion if needs to, help with questions, help with answers or correcting mistakes. And every week they have a quiz. Every week they hand in their homework. It's a peer-to-peer pedagogy where students teach and learn from each other under the supervision of the instructor. But it's very different than the Zoom experience, because it's really very interactive and very, very intense. And that's why, 85% of our students continue to second year, which is not the case in many of the other offerings that students have these days.
That's really incredible. I'm seeing a lot of comments come through since we're broadcasting live, just of people who are also, enrolled and taking advantage of this, it sounds like. And with that, talking about enrolling in this, and as you said, a lot of people are looking to continue education, change degrees right now. It's certainly a big time for that. How does somebody go about enrolling in University of the People?
So anyone with high school diploma and proficiency in English can apply to UO People. It's a University of the People, uopeople.edu. They can go online, and in actually 10 seconds they can be accepted. It's a very, very simple process. As long as you have high school diploma and proficiency in English, you can be accepted. You need to take 2 courses to show that you like our pedagogy and it works for you, at the same time to show us that you meet our academic standards. So it's a win-win. You take 2 courses, you pass them, you get credit for them and continue with us. You don't like what we offer, you don't have to pay, you don't have to take the exam, and you can just drop. So we give the opportunity, and as I said, 31,000 students do like it. So probably it fits many more that if they would just know that we are there for them.
Right, yeah, and that's what we're doing, is letting people know about that. So UO People, really incredible what you're offering here. Obviously, certainly right now it's a sign of the times, but just what you've been doing so far, this is a great way to get more people educated, for people to change their careers, do whatever they need to do. And I want to say thank you very much for joining us here on the show to talk about this. Really appreciate it, Shai.
And Greg, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. uopeople.edu. So really incredible there. A different way to get some education and free. That's just amazing. So we've got a lot to talk about here on the show today. So I appreciate everybody who's joining in. Wherever you're watching, hit that subscribe button. We are here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Up next, we're going to talk about WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference from Apple, going all online, just like everything else. But what to expect, that's what Luke Larson is going to talk about. Coming up next, stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler again. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. And as we've seen, so many conferences change and delay and now go online. So is WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference from Apple, which starts next week. And to get a preview of what is going to be happening, what we expect to happen, we've got our own Luke Larson here to talk about it. Luke, hello. And can you tell us just a little bit about like WWDC? What do you normally see from something like this?
Yeah, so this is Apple's big developer conference. I mean, it's one of the biggest tech events of the year just because it's Apple. And so, we typically see this is an event that's for developers primarily. So usually it lasts, all week, and there's all sorts of different sessions for developers who would typically be coming onto Apple's campus and learning about all the new stuff that Apple is going to be releasing in terms of software. This year, obviously, it is going to be different. Because all of that is happening online, and that includes the keynote, which is 10 a.m. Pacific time this upcoming Monday. So that part of it won't change a whole lot for those of us who will be watching from home anyways. But that does mean there's going to be a number of things announced, and from what we can tell so far, obviously this. We kind of all base it off of rumors and speculation and different reports, but there are still a number of pretty cool product announcements that we're expecting and some big changes that Apple's going to be bringing this year.
I mean, I'm going to be interested to see how they do that, because usually, for these things, you have the cheering audience, and they've got everybody all revved up, all the Apple employees in there, and journalists, but, it's pretty set up. So that's going to be kind of fascinating how they present it. But when it gets to the actual things that are going to be announced, what do we expect this year?
Yeah. So the big thing, and this is always the big thing, it'll be the next version of iOS, which is the iPhone operating system. So it typically gets announced at WWDC each year, and then it gets released later in the year, typically when the new iPhones come out. So this year it's iOS 14, so we're in the 14th generation, and there's a ton of different rumored features, stuff people are looking for, hoping for. One of the big rumors about iOS 14 is that a lot of the iPad features are going to be coming to the iPhone, which I think is exciting for some people, including possibly having widgets on the home screen, which is something people have wanted for a really long time. It's one of those Android features that iPhone users have always wanted that you get on the iPad. So stuff like that, as well as maybe cursor support, which is another new feature that came to the iPad. So we're going to be definitely seeing a lot of focus on iOS 14 like normal. And then I also would expect them to talk about the iPad in depth also, because the iPad Pro and the Magic Keyboard was announced, pretty recently. And because there was no event this spring that there typically would be, where they would talk about that kind of thing, there's a lot of stuff they just haven't addressed directly with either developers or really the public in any direct way. So talking about like the cursor support, or things like the LiDAR sensor that's on the lid, stuff like that. We just don't really know quite what the ramifications are for developers and what kind of apps we're going to see. So, I think they're going to be talking a lot about that as well.
So we've got that, when it comes to the iPad and iOS 14. What about hardware? Are there ever any hardware announcements at this?
Yeah, there usually are hardware announcements. For example, last year we got the new Mac Pro and the display that came with that, the XDR display. So we do typically see some kind of hardware, no iPhones or anything like that. But this year, the only piece of hardware that I feel pretty confident about that we're going to get, not for sure, nothing's for sure, but I do think we're going to get a redesigned iMac. And this has been in the works for a while now. I mean, the iMac has really been unchanged for I don't know how long, really a really long time. It basically has looked almost identical to how it currently does today. And we're expecting to see an iMac that the rumor was that it was going to be the design of it was going to take some of the look of the iPad Pro, which is cool. So we're talking like thinner bezels. Right now the iMac has huge bezels, especially along the bottom. So thinner bezels, larger screens, and hopefully, a completely redesigned thermal system, brand new components in there. It could use a lot of refreshing for the iMac. And then the other thing is not specifically a hardware thing, but it is related to Macs. And it's actually going to be a really big change to how the Mac system architecture works. And I think developers in particular are going to be interested in this. Um, Basically, Apple moving their Macs from Intel chips to their own A series ARM chips. This is been in the works for a long time. And basically, it means that after 15 years of using Intel chips, they are now ready to move to their own chips, the same ones they use in iPads, iPhones. They've seen a lot of success with that, and I think finally getting to the point where they feel comfortable enough to put those chips in Macs is a really, really big deal, and it's not something that we're going to see products announced at. I don't think at WWDC. I think these are going to be 2021 products, but they have to announce it early because there's a long runway in terms of getting developers on board. There's a lot of apps that need to come to support these new chips in the Mac environment. Right. So this is a really big transition that I think they're going to announce at WWDC and focus a lot on.
Definitely some big things then, yeah, because that switch is huge, like you said, and you've got to wonder what Intel is going to say back, how Intel's going to respond to that too. So a lot of things, a lot of excitement with that, and that's happening all next week. And we've got a preview up to Digital Trends that people can go and take a look now, but then we'll keep everybody up to date as some of these announcements are unveiled. Luke will keep you on top of that. And Luke, as always, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Greg.
Luke Larson, right there. Check out everything he's got at digitaltrends.com. All right, continuing on here with the show. Let's talk about the changing way that media is adapting to everything that's going on. And certainly somebody who was at the forefront was Sri Srinivasan. He's going to be on next to talk about his daily show and some of the different initiatives that he has launched with his platform. That's coming up next. Stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thank you very much for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We broadcast live here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, but we're not the only live daily broadcast that happens, and that is what we're going to be talking about next. In conjunction with a lot of things, we've got the host of Sri's Daily Global COVID-19 show, Sri Srinivasan, joining us right now. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Great to be here. Well, I'm calling in from the epicenter of the epicenter here in New York City on the Upper West Side in Manhattan.
And I think it's pretty amazing what you've been doing with your time during this. Now, naturally, you're a seasoned journalist. You've been in this business for a long time, but as soon as this happened, you started this show. And I want to kind of give everybody some context of that and talk to us about why you wanted to start it and what it is you've been doing during this lockdown and quarantine.
Thank you very much. Basically, what we decided to do was a daily conversation around COVID-19 And it was 98 days ago. Today's my 98th straight day of putting 1 hour, 2 hour shows on every single day. And since we were in lockdown anyway, we decided that's a good good use of my time. And we've had an amazing response. Millions of people now have seen this around the world. And I'm just so grateful that we were able to bring a conversation. This week, for example, tonight, my 98th show is with Mitchell Silver, the New York City Parks Commissioner, to talk about not just what it's like to run 14% of New York City's land mass is under his control as the Parks Commissioner and how people can go out and be safe, but also talk about what it's like to be an African American man in this moment, being a leader and someone that people around the country look up to. So we are looking at three different crises on my show. The crises of what's happening with healthcare, the financial and economic crises, and the racial inequality crisis, all at the same time.
And that's a lot that's happening. One, I commend you on an hour to 2 hours of programming every single day. That is no easy feat.
But you guys do it, so
what you've been able to do. Yeah, we do, but it takes work. And you've been doing it for 98 straight days. That's pretty amazing. And with that, though, getting into these conversations that you're having, and there is so much happening at once, and I think conversations are a really important part of all of this. How have you seen coverage of this, and how important, I guess, does it come down to integrity when covering these specific topics?
I think you're absolutely right. That's a great word. The integrity matters of what you've been doing. For example, when it came to the racial inequality story, we felt like we had to earn the right to have a conversation about what I called a horrific week in America. When, if you remember, the first week after George Floyd's death, and we had Adam Server from The Atlantic, and we had Sonny Slaughter, who's a business leader, and Keisha Center, another great leader, all talking about these issues. And we were able to convene them because we had done the work of covering African Americans and others for so many days before we went on the air. So you're seeing wow, your team has done a good job of bringing us, showing some of the highlights of what we've done. And then tomorrow, for example, we have the chief scientist of WHO, the World Health Organization, and the head of pandemics. Both are going to be on my little show. This is just me and a couple of friends using free tools or almost free tools to do this. So the integrity matters, the work matters, and the audience matters. It's not about the raw numbers. It's about people who want to listen and have a deeper understanding and get some insights. That's what we're focusing on.
Well, and it clearly is resonating with people. I mean, obviously, like you said, you've got the chief of the World Health Organization who's going to be joining you. I mean, that's pretty amazing just in its own right. But talking about that and this audience interaction, let's talk about the different platforms you're on. Now, you mentioned some of the tech you're using, some free tools. Can you tell us a little bit about what technology you're using and how you're engaging with your audience?
Thank you. So my daytime job is as the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism. So that means I have to try to be innovative, but I also want to use tools that are very simple, very clear, and very cheap. So we do most of our work on Canva, for example, to do the graphics, and Canva has a free mode. I didn't even pay for it till about 50 days in, and that was only as a kind of a thank you to Canva because it's such a great tool. We use StreamYard in order to produce our shows. StreamYard is, basic price is like $20 a month, and we are live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn all at the same time. We're able to get that out and get it out there in that inexpensive manner. And then we're using the power of social to do this. So we also deliberately focused on my YouTube channel. I have channels with tens of thousands of people, but I focused on YouTube, which only had 200 people when we started. And now we, going on there, and that's our archive, youtube.com/Srinet. If you want to see any of the shows, please subscribe. But one of the things I've learned is how hard it is to get YouTube subscribers, because YouTube subscribers, you have to earn. It's like hand-to-hand combat, retail sales, one YouTube subscriber at a time. Whereas on Facebook and Twitter, it feels to me you can get a lot of followers, but you earn those YouTube subscribers.
That's interesting. Yeah, seeing how the different platforms work, we test that out too. By the way, the handle Srinet is genius. Just I want you to know that. But looking at this show, and where you're at, it's going to be your 98th straight day. Where do you see this going? I mean, obviously we We don't know what's going to happen when it comes to any of these issues. But for your show in particular, how do you see this growing and continuing on, further?
We hope that we didn't need to do any of this, right? We hope all of this comes to an end and we're back to normal. Unfortunately, as you know, that's not going to happen. And we have been told multiple times by sponsors, by viewers, please continue, even if you don't do it every single day. And that's also a point for your viewers to think about content. As long as you are doing something that's relevant and you have a good audience, not giant audience, but a good audience, an interesting audience in itself, if you put those together, there are sponsors, there are marketing dollars out there sitting on the sidelines. They're looking for things to get behind. And so there's an opportunity. For me, I think we'll keep going as long as we're on lockdown in New York, and then we'll see. There's the elections coming up, and I've told everybody, let's work on something during this pandemic, learn something. So I was learning how to do this, how to use Canva, how to use YouTube. And I've been so humbled by the response from around the world. And there's so much more we can do. Also, partnerships matter. We had a single episode that had 187,000 viewers, a single episode, because of the guest that came on from Doha Debates. She brought the firepower. So like that, we do a weekly show also, which is called the New York Times Read Along. We read the New York Times out loud like crazy people. I've been doing it for 5 years. And for that, we had Rick Wilson come on, who is a noted Republican strategist and now an anti-Trumper. He brought 86,000 viewers to our live show just on his Twitter feed. So all of it this is not about me. This is about the network and the team of people that are coming to learn something that's different from regular television. I have two awesome producers who I don't pay enough at all to do this, in Vandana Menon and Rose Horowitz, but we are learning together, and that's the main thing. And people are responding. And for our 100th show, it's also Juneteenth. That's an example. As an Indian American, I know so little about Juneteenth, but now I'm getting an education. We're going to celebrate that. We're going to mark our 100th episode as well. And we're going to have some great guests and try to learn. And that's all we can do. My hashtag is always be learning as much as possible.
Well, I think that's a great hashtag, and it's so important right now. And these conversations that you're having are obviously resonating with people, and hopefully some more people are going to go check it out after this. And Sri, I want to say thank you so much for joining us to just have this conversation about what you're doing. Appreciate what you're doing, and appreciate you being here on Digital Trends Live with us.
Thank you. This is a real treat. Thank you very much, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. You too. All right, that is pretty amazing, Sri, right there. So check out his show, SriNet, on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button to Sri's channel there, and some pretty amazing conversations they're having. I'm excited to go back and look through some of the archives on that. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us, too. This is Digital Trends Live. You can hit subscribe to our show wherever you're coming from. We've got more, though, coming up next. It's Wednesday. It's time for TBD. That is our segment with Adrian Warner and Jess Serba. Now, what is it going to be about? I don't know. That's why it's TBD. So that's coming up next. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you very much for joining us. Wherever you are, we appreciate it. And hit that subscribe button. Okay, it is Wednesday, which means it's time for TBD. What is it going to be about? I don't know, but our hosts will tell us. Joining us, we have, first off, Jess Suraba. Hello, Jess.
Hey, Greg. How are you?
I am doing well. Good to see you. And as always, we also have Adrian Warner. Hello, Adrian.
Hi, Greg. How's it going?
Going well. I am excited to find out what TBD is going to be about this week. So what are we talking about?
Well, we have a really good one lined up for you this week, as always. This week's TBD stands for Traveling Beyond the Domicile, because we are all itching to get out
Yes.
For a summer travel season that will not really be like any others, obviously. So before we start, Greg, I have to ask you, do you have any summer travel plans?
Oh, I wish. I mean, I will go anywhere. Anywhere. It doesn't matter to me. Anywhere to get out of the side of the house. So you tell me, where can I go? What can I do?
Yeah, I think we're all in that boat. I mean, now officially schools are out, or at least, offline, and temperatures are starting to increase across the country. So people are asking themselves and, experts, can I actually get out of town? Now, we do have to preface that the CDC warns that travel, even within the US, definitely increases your chances of getting and spreading COVID-19. However, I know that we're all at the breaking point after 4 solid months of quarantining, and just like itching to get out there. So, if you are planning a trip this summer, if you are planning to get out and explore a little bit, there's a lot of different precautions you can take. A lot of states have their own quarantining rules. For example, Hawaii requires all visitors to self-quarantine for 14 days. I'm personally from New Mexico, and I was looking to potentially book a trip this summer. New Mexico also it requires their air travelers to self-quarantine for 14 days upon arrival. Other states are a little bit more lax. In Florida, only visitors arriving from New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut are subject to a quarantine. But if you want to find out, if you're looking to travel to a state outside of your own, go on their tourism website. They will have those guidelines outlined for you. And there's always, these rules are ever changing. So it may be something one week, it may change the next. But that's a really good resource. Just look on the state's tourism websites and they'll let you know. Something else that people are really considering, though, is camping, because we all know that being outside definitely decreases your risk of infection, doesn't limit your risk of infection. It is possible, but you have to think about where you're going to be stopping along the way. Rest stops, things like campground bathrooms, RV sites all pose a much higher risk of exposure. So if you can avoid those, you can do something like backpacking. That's obviously better. And recently, a study was done. A range of health specialists in Michigan, ranging from medical directors to former infectious disease specialists, were interviewed, and they rated 36 activities and estimated their level of risk. They said that on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest risk level, camping came in relatively low, around a 3. So that's kind of on par with things like golfing or going to get your groceries, but it still is not a 0. So for comparison, they rated going to the gyms and amusement parks at an 8. And along that line, Disneyland is slated for a phased reopening in July, but for the love of God, don't go there if you're planning to stay healthy. CDC obviously has their guidelines. If you are taking a trip, anticipate your travel needs. Bring enough medicine to last you the entire trip. Bring sanitizers, face coverings. Prepare food and water in case you can't, stop along the way. And if you need to consider cleaning your travel lodgings when you're staying places, the CDC also has guidance on how to do that and clean and disinfect the places that you'll be staying along the way. Now, that is all within the US, but there are other places, our neighbors to the north, south, east and west, and they also have their own guidelines. So I'm going to hand that over to Jess to talk about international travel.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian. Yes. So Europe, their internal borders opened Monday after a 3-month shutdown due to coronavirus. They had sort of closed everything pretty chaotically as each country began imposing each of their own restrictions as things escalated. So they're really hoping that the actual reopening is a little bit more ordered. To note too, there is the EU and then the Schengen. area. The Schengen area is a zone of 26 European countries that officially abolished all passports and all types of border control at their mutual borders to allow for free and unrestricted movement of people. So although most of the Schengen countries are in the European Union, not all are. So that's important to note. So this does mean that open borders and really easy travel have been a reality for almost 25 years. After years of diplomacy, after the Cold War. So many do say that they've realized that they've really taken for granted the ease with which they could kind of move about Europe as a whole. So to help people navigate rules that vary from nation to nation, the European Commission launched the Reopen EU. Essentially, it's a site that details info on travel to and within European countries, including quarantine requirements, etc. The EU's own health agency has actually advised that border restrictions inside the EU and the Schengen are open, so are keeping the restrictions closed, or is technically not an effective way to deal with the pandemic right now. So they are, they kind of advise opening back up. And the Interior Ministry said it's actually targeting July 1st as the timeline to begin relaxing restrictions on travel from countries outside of the EU. Italy has been open since June 3rd for everyone coming from the EU, the UK, and the Schengen. France, Germany, and Switzerland were among the countries that lifted their restrictions on Monday. Again, this is only for arrivals from within the EU and the Schengen. And as of right now, these countries have no requirements to quarantine upon arrival. So you can't go to Europe just yet, but what about our neighbors? Can't quite go there yet either. So that would be a no. The Department of Homeland Security extended border closures with Canada and Mexico. The borders will remain closed to non-essential travel until July 21st. We don't have to wait that long. That extra 10 days means a lot. Non-essential travel will be curtailed at the land ports, but travel deemed essential will still be permitted and includes like work study, like critical infrastructure support, health things, supply chains, and then trade will also continue. I did also learn from this that the US-Canada border is the world's longest border between two nations, which I thought was really interesting. So anyway.
That is interesting.
Right? Very interesting. So we'll have to, keep our eye out. As Adrian said, things are changing so quickly. There are so many moving pieces from, all the different groups of people that are making these decisions. So we'll just have to stay posted.
So, well, all right. So camping is what it sounds like it is. I will say campground bathrooms were gross before this, so that really doesn't change anything, I feel like, no matter what with COVID-19.
Sounds great to me, honestly, at this point.
I'm in. All right, I did hear Charlie trying to jump the gun, but it's not time yet for Charlie Cam. So we do need to do this, though, another segment of TBD, which is Kick Stop It. So what do we have today?
Yes. Well, we took a look at the wild world of crowdfunding this week, and I found one that doesn't really go with the name Kickstop It because I am wholeheartedly kickstarting this. I'm just going to jump the gun and say that there. It's called Birdsy, and it is a camera that records and identifies birds for you. It has a unique AI that records and IDs birds and different wildlife on your video feed. It comes with a 1080p camera that you can set up in front of any feeder or, water feature or anything like that. And it will record clips and identify these birds and then send them to you. So you can share them on social media. You can sort by bird type and species. And it'll let you know even when a new species pops up. So it'll notify you. I think that this is awesome. It has great clips on their Kickstarter page with magnificent titles such as Devoted Cardinal Dad and Blue Tit Fights. So just take a look at their Kickstarter. I'm kickstarting it.
All right, Jess, what about you?
I will be kick-stopping this purely because I am deeply not into birds.
That's another reason why I picked this.
Yeah.
Wait,
really
I want to know more about that.
Greg, I just don't even want to talk about it. I don't know.
All right, a bad bird experience. I won't bring it up.
I don't know if it was like living in New York and for a long time and the pigeons. I don't know. I'm not into the bird. Not into the bird.
It is. I think it's under $200. I believe it's going for $149 if you back it. So it is not cheap. Cheap.
It is funded though. Yeah. Other people are into this, Adrian. It's not just you.
A lot of people are becoming bird people in quarantine. I mean, you take your entertainment where you can get it. Maybe I'm a bird person. Right. I didn't know it the entire time. Yeah, it's one cam, so $199 I think is what it is for one of them, and then you can get multiple cams too if you really want to get crazy. But yeah, full HD, weatherproof. You know, maybe you know what? I'll kickstart it. I rarely kickstart any of these. Fine, I'm
a bird person now.
I'm a bird person now. That's who I am. So
find out new things every day.
I have to live with that. Yeah. All right, that is part of Kickstop It. Jess is already mad about this. So Birdsey, that is the one for today.
I don't like it.
Not one bit. So we do have though one final thing to round out, a cam that we can all agree that is worthwhile.
Another
that we all want.
Magnificent piece of wildlife. Our Charlie cam.
This I like.
He does, you know, has Charlie. His fresh kill beside him.
Vicious animal right there.
Very vicious.
Charlie.
Nature, wildlife.
Charlie cam. All right, Jess, Adrian, another fantastic segment. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, I'll talk to you both soon. TBD right here on Digital Trends Live. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. So we do broadcast live every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Let me give you a little bit of what's coming up on the show tomorrow. We'll have Rick Marshall with Real News, Lisa Marie Segarra talking about gaming, including the Gaming Hall of Fame and who's getting into that. We'll also have Brenda Darden-Wilkerson, who's the president and CEO of AnitaB.org, a global nonprofit founded with a mission to empower women in technology. So a great conversation to be had right there. And all of that's on tomorrow's episode, so you want to hit subscribe. And I'm Greg Nibbler. I'll be right back here tomorrow with another edition of Digital Trends Live.